right, taking a look at prices of Bitcoin and Ether in trade this morning. Fairly steady right now, but you do want to look at that level for Bitcoin because we're pretty close again to that all-time record high ahead of the Bitcoin halving that should take place later this week. But big moves, of course, this year, given we saw US spot Bitcoin ETFs coming to market. And now we've actually got several asset managers in Hong Kong who have given conditional approvals to start, again, those same spot Bitcoin and also Ether ETFs. That's a point of difference. Let's get our Bloomberg Intelligence ETF analyst, Rebecca Sin. And Rebecca, talk us through who got approved for this, because actually some of the names that came out perhaps weren't who could have been expected.
So in Hong Kong, there were 3 ETF issuers that got approved. And to your point, they were not the big ones that we had expected. So the 3 that got mentioned are Bosera, China AMC, and Harvest. And split across these 3 ETF issuers, Bosera has just 6 ETF with 40 million in assets under management. China AMC is the largest with 15 ETF and 3.6 billion. And then Harvest just has 3 ETF and 10 million in assets. So they are not your usual suspect, but it is interesting because ultimately this is the first spot Bitcoin and Ether ETF to be launched in Hong Kong.
What's the significance of these conditional approvals?
So what is interesting here is ultimately Hong Kong is trying to be the crypto or virtual asset hub of Asia Pacific. And what Hong Kong has done to differentiate themselves is they are allowing in-kind creation and redemption. And what this means is ultimately if you are a holder of Bitcoin or Ether, you can swap that into an ETF. In the US, they have only allowed cash creation and redemption. And what this means is ultimately you provide cash and in return you get a Bitcoin ETF. And so Hong Kong is taking a little bit of a different play where they're going to allow Bitcoin or Ether, physical transaction of in-kind creation. So if you're a holder of Bitcoin or Ether, you can then swap that into an ETF. And so this is a really significant event because ultimately it can attract different players, people that are already holding these virtual assets and cryptocurrencies. They can potentially swap into an ETF format if they want.
There's a lot of question marks over the AUM that we're going to be seeing here, especially given the huge inflows we've seen into the US. Do you think we can sort of match that level or reach anything near it? And also, is there a way for mainland Chinese investors to express their interest in these products?
So I think if we look at the Hong Kong market, Hong Kong has roughly 51 billion in assets under management. And if we look at the flows that we've seen in the US, we've seen roughly 1% of assets into the US go into crypto assets and virtual assets in the US. And so if we replicate that in Hong Kong, I think we can see as much as 1 billion going into these Ether and Bitcoin ETF. In Hong Kong or in Asia Pacific, there's already roughly 250 million in assets. In Hong Kong, we already have futures base. So CSOP and Samsung has a Bitcoin and Ether futures base, and there's roughly 200 million in that. So I think there is potential in Hong Kong. Each of these ETFs could gather as much as 100 million. And so I think in terms of assets, 1 billion is the target that we're expecting. And there is a lot of demand from mainland China, but I don't think this product will be added on ETF Connect anytime soon. There's some concerns around, QD quota and what's going to happen, but I don't think we're going to get demand right away.
All right, Rebecca Sin there. Thanks so much for your time.